Hello everyone, welcome to .NET Mirror channel. Today we will build a .NET application in the Aspire. Then we will try to integrate the app with SQL Server database as an integration within Aspire. In this video, we will create a .NET Core Blazor application. We will run within the Aspire. Then we will run a SQL database as a container within the Aspire, and we will look at the demo end to end. Before you get started, make sure you have Docker desktop installed. Development knowledge of .NET and Aspire you should be having. Visual Studio IDE to develop the code, or any other IDE or Visual Studio Code. Aspire SDK installed. I have created a video on .NET Aspire and how to run it. I will put the link in the description. Let's get into the demo. So I have Visual Studio 2026 installed. Let's create a new project. Select ASP.NET Core and Blazor app. Click on next. I will not change any name. Now let's select .NET 10 as a framework. Now this is creating the app. This particular app will create front end app as a Blazor. Then it creates an API service as well. Two services it will be created within the Aspire. Now application is getting loaded. Yeah, now if you look at the code, this is the app host. So for the .NET Aspire, first it is going and talking to the API service. After the API service is running, it's creating a web front end. And if you look at here, it's waiting for API service to complete. Now let's run this app. Now the app is built and the application is running on 1730 port. Now if you look at here, first it is running to trying to run the API service, then it is trying to run the web front end. Let's refresh the app. Whenever you see any issues, you can just go and open console log. You can look at the issues. If you look at here, first it says waiting for API services to run. Once the API service is healthy, then this particular app is run. Right, let's go to the resources. These are the your API plus web front end links. So let's open API service. Let's open web front end. And if you go to the web front end, it has the basic Blazor application, hello world. And if you go to the weather API, in a similar way, we will create a SQL, a Blazor page which is talking to the SQL server. In this weather page, basically it is going and talking to an API. If you look at the code, this is the Razor page. If you go to the pages, weather page, and if you go down, it is making a call to the weather API, which is here. And this particular weather API is making a call to the API service. And within the API service, if you go to the program.cs, it is try to set up all the required things. And there is hard coded summaries here, and there's a minimal API endpoint called weather forecast, and it is trying to return the summaries from here. And a date time and a random value between these numbers. Now if I take this endpoint, and if you go to your API service, which is this one, and if I now if you look at here, we are getting the data for the weather API from this particular service. If I go and refresh, it will keep fetching the random summaries and random numbers and date time, right? If I go and refresh, I'll get a similar way. Now the Blazor app is making a call to the API service, and app host of Aspire is building these two services. Now on top of this application, in a similar way, where we will create one more Razor page, one more API client, but this time we will talk to the SQL database. Similar to this application, I created already application. Let's open that. Let me close this solution. And this particular application is called as Aspire SQL, and I have pushed all this code to the repository, and I will give the link in the description. You can take this code and simply you can run end to end whatever I'm doing right now. So let's go to the code. Yeah, now as I mentioned, similar to the weather razor file, I created one page called certification. Let's run the demo first. Now in this demo, on top of whatever we had, the web front end plus the API service, we are going to get a SQL service up and running. Let's see that. Now if you look at the current screen compared to the previous one, it has only the API service and web front end. But yeah, because we closed the application, now it is trying to reconnect. But if you look at here, our SQL server is added, and the other two services are available. It takes some time to run the services. Let's wait for a minute. Now our SQL server is running. Yeah, our database is running. Yeah, now if you look at here, all our four services are running. Main is a SQL server. I created a database called learning, and these two are previous ones only. Let's go and click on this web front end. Similar to weather, I created one more page called certification, but this time this particular data is coming from the database. So let's go to the services, and if you look at this API service, and if you go down, there is a connection string which is connecting, which is called connection string underscore learning, which is our database name. If you look at the value, this particular database is running here. Let's go to the SQL server. I will connect to the local container, the password. Let's take from there. This is the password. Let's connect to the database. Now if you look at here, right, this particular database services is not running like in my local like a SQL Express. It is running within the Aspire as a container. So let's go to the database. Let's go to the learning. So let's do a select star from my table name is certification. So let's run the query. Now these are the 6 rows we have. Let's insert one row. Let's put a some test number, test certificate. So let's run this. Now one row is affected. Now if you look at here, we got 7 rows. Let's go to the app. Let's close this. Let's go to the certification page. Now if you refresh, I got my test certification working over here. Now let's understand how we did this integration. Let's go back to our code. So here we have a SQL server named service is running. Make sure that you install Docker desktop first. Let's go to the PPT. Some other instructions we have to do is make sure that once you install Docker desktop, try to run this command where it goes and pulls a SQL server image, so that this image will be used in the Aspire to run your SQL server container. And within your solution, make sure that you're running this particular package within the code that I have done, and go to the app host, and to add SQL server as a container, you have to do these 2 steps. Let me go to the code. Let's go to the app host. Okay. Previously, right, we have only the API service and the web front end. But now, if you look at my code, I've added one service called add SQL server, and I'm putting a configuration called persistent, which means that whenever I mean, if you don't put this option, whenever you keep running SQL server, right, it runs like a container. You will lose the data. So to persist my data, right, I'm trying to put this option. I'm creating a database called learning, and the database is created, and I'm trying to put these scripts as initial scripts, so that whenever the database created within the container, these scripts will go and run within the database. Now if you look at here, I'm taking this database variable, and I'm saying that to the SQL service add the database as database name, and with the creation script I'm putting this entire I'm passing this script as a uh, input to this particular database. Once this DB is there, we are saying that run the API service but wait for the database to run. Then here same thing, right? API service, we are saying web front end wait for the API service, which means that first SQL server will run, then API service and web front end. And if you see any issues, go to the console log and see what kind of issues you have. Now let's look at the code as well. So I have a certification.razor, which is trying to populate these 3 columns, and I'm trying to make a API call which is similar to weather API client. I created a certification API client. If you look at here, this particular API client is making a call to the minimal API within the API service. Other than weather forecast, I added one more endpoint called certification, which is trying to take the data from data access layer service, which is called list certifications. And if you go to this DAL, I have endpoints for all CRUD operations, but I'm not using them. I'm using only the get operation. Remaining operations, I did not implement it. So if you look at the list certification, it is connecting to our container database. It is trying to fetch the data. But the interesting thing is, let's understand how this connection string is configured. And if you look at my API service, I did not configure any kind of a connection string within my API service. But how it is coming? Let's look at it. Basically, when you go to the program.cs, what it does is Aspire automatically sends the connection string as a configuration to your API service. So if you look at here, I'm saying builder.configuration, give me connection string. This learning is nothing but your database name. That's why if you go to your Aspire, it came as endpoint as underscore learning. Then I'm taking this particular connection string and I'm passing to my DAL layer as a dependency injection. Then if you look at here, and I'm making a call to my DAL service. In this way, I'm trying to get data to my page. With this, we are done with the demo. Let's go to our PPT. Yeah, to make a SQL Server integration, make sure you have Docker desktop. You pull the image. Yeah, let me show the Docker desktop as well. This is my Docker desktop, and if you go to the code, and if you look at my SQL Server, which is the source is server, the tag name is 2022 latest. Now if we see here, the same tag image is available here. Let's go back to the PPT. Yeah, once your Docker is pulled, make sure that you add the package to your application. Use these configurations to start your SQL Server container. I've added few links, I'll put in the description. This is the code base I've used. I pushed the code. I've created a .NET Aspire basic initial application. You can look at here, and also I've created a YouTube video. Let me show the links to you. So this is my code base which I used in this video. This is the .NET Aspire initial article I wrote it. You can understand what is .NET Aspire, what are the uses of .NET Aspire, and how can you run your basic application. And I've created the video for the same. You can refer this as well before you start SQL Server integration. With this, we are done with the video. Thanks for watching. Please give a like if you like the video. Share with your friends. Click on the bell icon on our channel to get more updates from my videos.